I see the red button.
Okay.
It's recording.
What I was looking at was like Obama came out with his book, first of two volumes or something.
About what?
I don't know. It's Obama. The title is called A Promised Land. So I'm guessing, like the Michelle Obama stuff. I'm guessing it's memoirs and stuff. It's a forthcoming memoir by Barack Obama. It is due to publish November 17th. Tomorrow, it's gonna drop like an album. Interesting.
Big old drop.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna either audiobook it or something. I would love to hear him talk to me, just like.
I just imagine his his cadence.
Yeah,
it's just it'd be amazing. All right, Linda.
Hello.
So, how you doing?
Good. Oh my God, your Wi-Fi is great right now. Your signal.
I know. It's because I'm cheating the system.
Okay, so today we are talking about the Social Dilemma movie.
Social Dilemma documentary.
Okay, do you want to give us a great summary of it?
So, it's basically a documentary talking about the current state of social media and tech in general, and I guess media and propaganda as well, and how social media started as something that was very positive. People wanted to change the world, but they're looking at it now and the effects it's having on children, politics, our economy, and just the world in general, and how we can sort of backtrack. But there was one line that says something about how they can't really put the genie back in the bottle, which I thought was pretty interesting. But yeah, so basically it's the starting point of what can we do to make the future of social media better after we kind of effed up the past 10, 15 years. So yeah.
So what was your first impression of it? Did you watch it when it initially come out?
Yeah, I think I watched it a week later, or 2 or 3 days later. And my initial response was the same sort of response I have whenever I watch something about social media and its effects on us. It's just like, okay, so I started removing apps that I don't need. I started trying to limit the time that I use my phone, and trying to do more things in the real world. But I found that as I started going back into my own plans of business and desire to do things, I found myself back on social media, trying to network, trying to find people, find inspiration. And I kind of got sucked back into the loop. And after watching it a second time, I realized that the onus isn't on me. It's kind of like actually being an alcoholic and having an addiction, but the thing is, you need it to function in society. If you want to have any sort of influence or sort of career in media, art, or anything, you need these platforms to spread the word, or that's what it's made to believe. So my first impression, or second impression, I guess, is that it really needs to come from the companies, that there has to be change. And I'm not really optimistic because I think
we'll get to that in our closing statements, right? But
yeah,
for me, I legit really tried to avoid watching it because I knew it was gonna make me have to use my brain juice after working hours, or try to basically think about it. And I did find myself I'm pretty sure my face the whole time when I watched it was like this, because but I'm actually very happy that I watched it. I'm I feel less pessimistic about it than you are. Because for me the anxiety was oh no, I'm going to confront these problems that I knew about already. So watching it and then kind of seeing the people that behind it and their intention, initial intention for social media in general wasn't bad. We forgot about it, we forgot what the initial intent was. Honestly, I didn't even really think about it that back then. It was just a platform you put your pictures on for your friends in high school, right? Now it's a total whole different like monster machine where like you said, like for work or for anything in the arts, entertainment, communications, like anything visually, or even like businesses, like any business, you have to be on social media. So it is a crazy monster that I think definitely needs to be regulated. And there are obviously terrible things that happen because of it not being, regulated. That we're gonna like touch on. That was my first impression was, and then after I watched it, I'm like, okay, I see.
Did you find it informative, or did you feel like you knew some of the stuff that was happening?
I found it informative in the fact that it was good to hear people like that made all these things possible. The person that did the infinite scroll, the person that started the like buttons and stuff like that, and
the monetization and all that stuff.
Yes, all that, because it is true. When they say like, if you're not paying to use the product, you are the product. For me, I was like, and that quote came like really quick in the movie, and I was like, damn, that was like true. Because in the beginning, we are just like, oh, it's all free platforms, like you don't know.
Yeah, and then I remember some of the fears were like, oh my God, we're going to have to pay for Facebook. That's not fair. Do you remember that there were always those rumors? It's going to become a subscription and stuff like that. And it's just like, well, I'm not going to pay. And it's like, well, now you're paying.
Yeah, well, and then companies are like, we should insert like Mr. Burns from like The Simpsons. Okay. Basically that. So yeah, they're paying, and we're the products. We're being sold to them.
I mean, I feel like it was informative, but I also felt, I don't know if you watched the documentary about Fire Festival.
Yes, that was a mess.
Do you remember how it was all these people that were like lamenting about how they've messed up and how they could have changed things and different things like that? And it's just like, guys, you're sitting here with $1 million like company doing a documentary about how you frauded people, and you're telling me that you never thought once that there was a problem until it became a problem. That's kind of how I felt about the documentary. It's just, I understand thinking so positively, like we're going to change the world, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but it's just like, have you ever taken a philosophy class and done a thought experiment about where this could go? Especially if you're, I guess the tech industry is not really known for the, seeing outside of like, I guess what could happen. That's not their point. It's kind of more calculated goals. So, if we put this like button here, how can we generate this to make sure that people use this like button? Not this like button is going to force people to like almost commit suicide because they're not getting enough of it, But on the other hand, they had people who were studying psychology, and the effects of our brain.
Like the Tristan?
Exactly. Yeah. So I was there. It's like, well, how these are going to affect people, and that we're not supposed to be dealing with millions of followers or 77 people you don't know kind of giving you feedback all the time. It's just, so I was kind of confused there. It's like you're constantly doing all these experiments and all these thought experiments to create these things based on science, psychology, and tech. And it's just like, but you never thought that this could harm people, like, about addictions to gambling, which is, and how those machines are made specifically to get people to come back and be addicted. And you're basing your social media off of that and the scrolling. So
I would say that, sense, did you see like the graph where it went like the technology, the expansion of it was like, it went like straight up, like during this like short 5 years of social media? I'm like, honestly, like humans are not, when you make a mistake, like let's say you said something to your family member or something, it always comes back to you like a little bit later. Like I would say like this is kind of the thing that you're like, okay, oh, this looks like a great feature. You do it, implement it, things happen, things go wrong, and you're talking with your team, but you never, like, let's say your team is like 5-10 people, right? Like these people are. And then I don't think they're like thinking like very globally about it. And plus, you know, when you have a honestly like a desk job, you just what are you gonna do, right?
Do what you got to do.
Yeah, it's you're not gonna go like maybe like the guy Tristan, like the guy that was like featured a lot, like his journey was a bit more unique. Like he really took the initiative, and then even him, he's seen like after his whole Google like saw his presentation and everything, they stopped talking about it, and then he was the one that like took the initiative to like really go after it, right?
I do think that there is a problem with whistleblowers and people who do question the morality of what's happening. Again, in another podcast I watched, there was talk about how one woman was managing a whole country in terms of their Facebook. I can't remember what it was, or Facebook something, and it was one woman, and she kept bringing up certain problems that were happening, and they kept saying, well, these problems aren't big enough. These problems aren't, you know, how is this going to affect revenue? If it doesn't affect revenue, whatever. And I think it always comes down to like, how much money can we make? You know, are we going to be pleasing our shareholders, even if there's a complete genocide? I mean, it's still ads because people are still on Facebook looking up at all this propaganda, you know? So it doesn't, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the content is, as long as there's content and ads being looked at.
It's true.
And that's what
they were saying
said.
Like, they call this weaponizing social media, right? Which is very, like those videos of like the protests and everything. I was like, damn. Like I have to say the cinematography of it, like how they put it together with like they did like a fake family and their journey through it, and cutting to pieces of people talking and like casual talking, like interview style, with like real footages of like protests of people like beaten down. I'm like, it's really well put together. It's really like, damn.
And it's based off of real stuff that's happening. I mean, there's one when you see the son in the family and he's starting to get slowly radicalized, and there's like a post that says don't vote. That was actually something that happened in Brazil, where there's a whole propaganda that allowed the current dictator to be elected, which was this whole push to tell youth like your vote doesn't really matter, you know, there's other ways to, you know, contribute, you know, this government is so corrupt, don't vote, like don't. But people didn't really think like, wait, if I don't vote, then
they didn't think it was like a trap kind of thing. They didn't think it was just like a plot.
Exactly. And those things, and there's even a lady who said that it took 6 months for democracy to just collapse in the Philippines.
Oh.
And I was just like, in the documentary, and I was just
was
like,
in the Philippines or in
Myanmar is different because they had the genocide of the Rohingya.
Yes, the Muslims over there.
And I think that was different than the Philippines.
Yeah,
just honestly, because like a lot of these countries are now getting Facebook, and that's what's happening because a lot of the dictators know exactly what Cambridge Analytica and Donald Trump did, but to win his election, and they're doing the same thing to mess up democracy in all these other places.
Do you think that democracy is like the way that they put it, it was like a very big issue? Do you think that it is? Like looking at like coronavirus and how they're dealing with it in the States, it's more close to us, right? Our home base kind of. Do you think that social media is like playing a big role in kind of messing that up? It was a big point in the movie too, right? I think like what is true, what is not. Like
I think that's the problem. I think they're talking about how lies and misinformation can get spread a lot faster than the truth, because for some reason the misinformation and the lies and the fake news, which when I first heard the term I was like, there's no such thing as fake news, either it's a lie or it's truth, you know. It doesn't make sense. But what's happening is if people are listening to all this propaganda and they can't delineate, it's not that they choose to believe the reality that they want. So if they believe that coronavirus is a hoax, they're going to be putting other people in danger. And I think it comes more from, I don't know if it's social media or just media in general, or if it's a new, just, it, I think it's a new sort of disbelief in science or distrust of science that can be easily perpetuated through grifters who post a lot of fake articles for ad revenue, you know, which goes back into people using the lies to their advantage and radicalizing people for any sort of conspiracy. I mean, you see it with flat earthers.
It's true that it's like, I remember clicking on one of these like kind of questionable articles with questionable links just for fun, just to see. Those are the links that have like millions of ads that pop up and everything. I'm like, these are the, like you said, these are the ones that get
clickbait.
I guess, yeah, clickbait, whatever, if that term is still a thing right now. But for me, I think it's so interesting to see how social media can be weaponized, like they were saying, on democracy. And yeah, because democracy, it is basically freedom of opinions and freedom of speech and spreading these opinions, right? So there's like one side is that, and on the other side is like we were talking about, like the genocides and everything, like also weaponize it using it as like a dictatorship kind of manipulative tool. So it's crazy. This is like a big threat, honestly, like for security in general.
And the thing that's scary is that you can't, because, and something that they talked about, it was like the Facebook groups, and how if you're kind of in one of those groups, you kind of all have the same opinions until you start saying an opinion that's wrong or they don't agree with, and then you're kicked out of those groups, you know? And then that's how another person forms another group, you know? And I think that's something that's scary and that we have to think about is how much of our generation is doing the same thing in terms of not listening to people who are wrong. You know what I mean? Because the only way you can get rid of those wrong opinions is if you actually debate them and hopefully plant a seed of, well, maybe, you know, maybe this idea isn't correct. Here are some of the facts. Because people aren't getting bombarded with the facts. They're getting bombarded with facts that have been skewed, you know? So I think, so what's scary is that it feels like there's no reality, you know, that there's no objective truth, which is what's scary, because it feels like the things that are supposed to be part of your tribe could be a lie. The things that part of another tribe could be a lie. So you're kind of just stuck in the middle, like, like how do I know what's true? Because I feel like everything has a bit of like a push towards what people want, you know, and it's kind of hard to figure out what's exactly fact. I mean, I'm not being like, well, you know, flat earth could be a thing. I'm more like, who's telling the truth about everything that's happening about COVID, you know? Because at the beginning, they told people not to wear masks, and now everyone's wearing masks. You know, like the spread of information is scary if you only listen to one person. You know what I mean?
But
or one side.
The irony, because back then it's like, imagine if you only had like 3 radio channels, and then that was your only source, and then that's when the lies could also spread like dictatorship style, right? And then, but now it's like, it's so complicated. It's like, what is it, like
there's
Tower of Babel, which is like everybody's not talking the same language. Nobody's like understanding each other. So I guess like in the future, hopefully we found some sort of common ground to like our own reality, but which is gonna be interesting. Like now, like utopia, you know, like all those futuristic films where you have like your own, every day you have like your own little message, your own world. I'm like, that's a thing now.
But that's literally what it is. And they say that, and how Facebook, if you were to go on my Facebook and we had the same exact likes, pictures, friends, anything, and we did the exact same thing over the course of a day, depending on where we lived, who, and different things like that, we could see completely different things. Especially with that Google search where it says climate change is. I tried it, and I I read this book when I was younger, and it's called Feed, and it kind of predicts everything that's happening now, where it's just all these tech companies are using our data against us and kind of marketing propaganda products, whatever, to us. And I've kind of always had it in my head to not be traceable, type of thing, to not necessarily take whatever ads or articles are given to me. Like I make it a point to go search for my articles, or try to, or if I need to find out something. And I think that's something that's also a problem, where they're kind of building portraits of each specific person and their political ideologies. So this is that you're a person who recycles, you're also going to vote Democratic, you're probably college educated, and different things like that. All those things, and they can still find a way to actually start pushing different propaganda on you as well. You're not free from it just because you're not part of those conspiracies. And I think that's what's scary too.
Honestly, for me, another point that was talked about was like how it affects younger people. And do you feel lucky in the fact that we're kind of, what is it?
Oh my God.
So this is the last generation of people that are gonna know what it was like before the illusion took place. Like, do you feel it? Did you felt that?
I do feel that. I think because I didn't have Instagram until my first year of college. I didn't even have a smartphone yet. So I feel like on two sides, I feel like I'm kind of not cut out to be in a world that has social media at the forefront, but I'm also happy that I don't feel the need so much to only use those platforms, because I realized that there were artists and photographers and media and philosophers who spread their thoughts without social media at some point, and I think the fact that we have something that's only existed for about 10 years, and we're thinking, oh my God, we can't live without it, this is the blame now, kind of doesn't make sense to me, because there were other ways to do things beforehand.
But it's crazy now. Like, think about it. Think about like maybe your younger cousins or siblings, or even like your kid in the future. Like, everything that they're going to know from the day that they're born is going to be a reference to the internet. Like, music is going to be from the internet. The movie is going to be from like Netflix. And then like philosophy, I'm sure, I don't even know. I'm sure they're going to get it like on TikTok. Like, this is what Plato said. This is what Aristotle said. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, it's already there. It's already there.
Yeah, it's like all they know is going to be on the internet. And even video games. When we play video games, it was like, when we weren't even connected to each other. Like, I was playing The Sims, you were playing like random things, and then we were like talk about it, or like magazines. Everything's online now. Do the kids even read magazines, or is it just like, Instagram scrolling on like the 3-4 popular people? Or so everything they're going to talk about is a reference to the internet. So it's going to be interesting how to see like what that's going to be like, which I'm not too excited about it. I'm going to be like, but
I think there's a way. Because I did see certain things about how there are parents who are kind of, they go to specific schools where they're not allowed to use iPads. They don't have iPhones, and they're in specific places where they can connect with reality. But these places are very expensive, and it's kind of interesting how we believe that being connected to tech is part of a sort of elite idea. But at the same time, these people who are the elite are like, not for my kid. So there are those two things.
Because honestly, having a free mind is priceless, like Visa would say, right?
Oh, it's crazy.
I actually you're getting cut off, or am I getting cut off? Whose signal is worse now?
The things that, can you hear me?
Yes, go.
Okay. I was going to say that one of the things that affects me the most, and I think we've talked about this before, is how we kind of have the thoughts of like 10,000 in our head before we ever do anything. So before we make a post, we're kind of always thinking about who's going to like this. Is anyone going to like this? Where it's just like, how, is this my burden to care about the opinions of 10,000 other people and make sure that I'm agreeable and make sure that I'm not offending anyone? It's I don't think that's the way the world should be, and it doesn't make sense. And I think that's why we have things like the extremes of cancel culture and, barely any thought leaders. Like, I don't know any thought leaders, and even the idea of a thought leader anyway.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting is that like our profiles are like public, right? And it's like when we want to share a piece of information, we're like, oh, this is interesting, we want to share it. But then would that make you want to make your account private? Or because like we never had this idea, like I guess in the prehistoric times or anything before internet, it's like nobody ever thought about like, oh, I want to share something. Like people just write it down. Maybe like I have a screenplay idea. I want to write a poem. They would craft it well and then try to find outlets for it. Now it's like every little piece of information we want to put it out there. But at the same time, we're like, wait, maybe we shouldn't put it out there. But I want to put it out there. This is weird dilemma of like wanting to do something that you don't want to do.
Exactly. And feeling like you have to do it.
Yes.
And then getting feedback on something that's not even finished because you feel like you need to show people the journey and that you're actually doing something, that you're being productive. And it's just like,
yeah, like, because at the same time you also, as a human, we want to connect with people, so we're hoping that this piece of thing that we find interesting connects with somebody that maybe is outside of our circle, or like, oh, they'll find me interesting, I want to find them interesting too. But then this weird also like, but then these are strangers, like they're gonna judge me. But then if I don't let myself open, like I'm never gonna meet people, like new people, or
and I think we had a conversation before, like outside of this, where you posted something and you're like, why isn't anyone replying? Like, why isn't there a discussion happening? And it's just like, people don't share their thoughts on Facebook anymore because all it takes is a screenshot and then out of context, and you're like, you could be effed for life, And I think that's, I think that's another thing that happens, is that people have.
I think it might be something like it's just like a simple thing, like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Like on, like, on Instagram, make it so easy for you to like click yes or no, or like 2 opinions or something. And then you can see people watching the stories, right? And you're like, wow, nobody said anything. I'm like, or like there's a lot, like the degree of people that respond to you is a lot less.
Yeah.
So, but these people are, or like me and you also, we engage with these kind of stories, but we're like, we're going to keep our opinions to ourselves and see what happens mostly, right?
And I think the scary thing is that a lot of people have this sort of acceptable opinions that they kind of spout off at the beginning, to make sure, like, it's kind of like to gauge where you stand with a person before you can actually say your real opinions, you know what I mean? Or have an actual discussion because you don't want to offend them.
Yeah. Honestly, internet, it's weird because they're also like the fact that social media were basically the movie, right? But now it's like when we talk, it's very momentarily. Like when I say something to you, it's gone. And now that we're recording it and we put it on the internet, it's not gone. Yeah. So it's like that also we're going to have to, like, as a society, figure out what that means, right? Like people, like you said, cancel culture and everything. I'm like, oh my God, like that makes no sense. People's opinions change, and you can't keep every single person accountable for the things that they thought about like 10 million years ago. And then like, just because they're successful now, you're digging through their trash is like,
And I think that's something, I don't know where that comes from. I think it comes from this idea of being too perfect, or that, if there's a dissenter or someone that disagrees with you, again, you on either side, if someone disagrees with you, there can't be anything redeeming about them. And I think that's something, I saw someone's post somewhere on their, I think it was Facebook, and it was something about how a person's politics are representative of who they are. So it really does matter. And I think about the fact that if someone was a radical Nazi at some point and then they changed to being a bit more understanding, or a little less radicalized, how would they get there if they're constantly being told that they cannot change? Do you know what I mean? And
yes.
how can you start to look for the possibility, look for the information, if you feel like you cannot change? I feel like the people who are ready to ask the questions are ready to change, and then we kind of throw them back based on cancel culture.
Yeah, cancel culture, and
it's like those bubbles.
Yeah, and the bubbles and everything. That's a horrible conversation that has to be said. Like, it's a bad, I don't know, it's a bad human nature thing. I don't know. It's because it's easy
I think it's the tribalism of social media.
It's easy to say no. Even let's say when we have an argument, it's easier to just disagree and walk away, or like have a fight, then instead of like calming your ass, calming yourself, and then have an actual civil debate. Because honestly, even in, like we were saying, right, when in school, what you don't learn anymore after preschool, you don't learn to make like new friends. You don't learn how to debate like a philosopher. You don't learn how to put up shelves and do your taxes. But that's a whole other thing, which I'm also like very sad about. Like, I don't know how to put up shelves. Another point I wanted to say was, do you find that they were saying when we are uncomfortable or lonely or uncertain or afraid, that we use digital media, basically social media,
as a pacifier?
Yeah.
Do you feel? I think so.
Do you feel that in your own life as like Vicky yourself? And do you catch yourself doing it?
As a pacifier for when I'm uncomfortable, I think I definitely watch a lot of Netflix and YouTube to kind of like make my mind go away. But usually what I'm watching are things that intrigue me, not just like mindless stuff. But I think I've stopped scrolling a lot. I'm still on my phone. I just don't know what I'm doing most of the time. Like, there are 4 hours that disappear during the day. But I feel like it's mostly on Reddit, where I'm trying to learn interesting facts. But I don't know if it's a pacifier. I think when I'm on on the metro and there's nothing to do, if I don't have a book with me, then I'll find myself scrolling or trying not to make eye contact with people. Like, those are the things that I used to do.
So yeah, basically when you're uncomfortable or lonely.
Yeah.
When I saw that kid kind of just standing around, not knowing what to do, like, honestly, that was me. That is me sometimes, because now that we're in like COVID times, we're like honestly standing around in our rooms. Like, if you're not on social media, you should be doing something quote unquote productive. And then if you don't have that aspect, you're like, well, I find myself kind of standing around like just doing nothing, because I'm trying to limit my time on all these things. But
I think at the beginning of COVID, I tried to get a lot of crafts. I bought a lot of books. I bought magazines, just because I wasn't interested in staying on. I think before that, I was already on a cleanse where I was like, I really don't feel like doing this. I'd rather watch movies, learn how to crochet, maybe do a puzzle, maybe color in a coloring book or something. But I watched my siblings like kind of like dive further into social media and not really do anything.
Oh no.
And yeah, so I saw that and I was just like, well, go get a book, go find something interesting to do rather than TikTok.
Because everything you do outside of social media, it's harder. Your brain has to work harder. Even reading a book, like just picking it up. Yeah, for me, like that's hard too. Sometimes I read like on my Kindle, and that Kindle's already a good thing. Yeah, it's already a good thing, better than like reading on your phone, because on the phone is already, you're holding the phone, but
you get notifications and you're like,
or like you're just two little taps away from like homepage, an app, homepage, Instagram, homepage, something, right? You're like, so that is something horrible. I want to like talk about, like those schools that are expensive for kids that like take away your iPad. I actually knew a woman and her niece or something went to one of those schools. Like they're always outside. They do arts and crafts and a lot of stuff like that. And she told me her niece basically does like they don't have the need, they don't have that want, they don't want things. Which me and my coworker, we were like, how does that feel like not to want things? You know, like the insidious nature of social media that changes you. Or was that, do you think that has amplified or wanting? Because wanting is basically I don't know, I feel like a very consumeristic view of things, right?
I think, I don't know if it's necessarily that they don't want things, but maybe they feel more fulfilled in themselves. Do you know what I mean? Because, you know, if I want to make a drawing, I'm not seeing other kids' drawings. I'm not seeing other examples of art. I'm not seeing like another person's life. I only see my life and maybe my friend's life, whose house I go to. And I was having this discussion with my mom because she didn't think that social media affected our desire and our consumerism. I was like, well, you grew up in a time where you don't see the life of 10,000 other people if you're following them. You know what I mean? You don't see this illusion. You can know it's an illusion, but knowing the illusion and still seeing it doesn't, like, your mind, it's like your mind can't take away that illusion. It's like you can pick it apart and you can see where the editing is. You can see like there's an ad that this was given to them, that they're probably not, you could probably see like a heroin needle in the picture and know that they're a drug addict or something. You know what I mean? And still you're like, I want this life, you know? And I think that's definitely, I think because social media uses us as a product to also buy things, it's really taught us that the only way to be happy is to actually consume and consume a lot.
Yeah. So I was saying this to you, right? Like for me, I'm very cautious of I turn all my notifications off so I don't get bothered. Because actually, for me, it's
impossible
annoying
to reach you.
If you're in an emergency, you'll find me somehow. Although I put my phone on silent so I can barely find my phone. Hilarious.
Useless.
For me, for you, it's opposite because I know I'm like, well, I can reach Vicky, and then if you don't respond in like 2 minutes, I'm like, where are you, Vicky?
I know you've done that. I'm like, my phone wasn't near me.
So I'm telling you, you got to set the expectation low. So I'm like, if ever I get like a boyfriend or something, I'm like, bruh, you know, it's not you, it's everyone. So I'm not responding to you. I'm not responding to anyone. But the thing is, for me, I really notice my own like habits. So I turn these off, but when I'm being obsessive about something, like when I posted like a story or something, I would like check on it and see, ooh, who looked at it? Like, so that's like,
why didn't anyone message me? Why didn't they like it? You know, why didn't they send a heart? Why didn't they send a fire? I look hot. Like, damn.
Tell me I'm pretty. Make me feel valuable. Make me feel seen.
I think you touched on something like feeling valuable.
Yeah.
It's like you want to feel valued in society based on, and
as a
someone
human
said
being
it's
in
like
general,
fleeting.
right? Yeah.
It's like fleeting. It was like short-term, vacant, empty. You know, like this popularity. And I think that's what it hits on. It's like I see all these people who are influencers. I was like, oh, they were probably the popular kid. You know, like it's so easy for them, type of thing.
But it just brings out like negative emotions, like you said.
Yeah, like nothing makes me feel good about posting something and hoping that everyone likes it, you know?
It's weird. So for me, I'm just scared, like I was saying, back on what we were saying, like I'm scared that even after social media, let's say we're like 45, I don't fucking know, 45, 50, retired. Let's say we're not at that point that we wanted to be. And we've been consuming this for like
20 years,
dozens of years, like, yeah. And that we would still feel empty, you know, we're like, now that we're not at that age where like we need to show off, and do you still
like, we wasted our youth.
Yeah.
Like the filters don't even work anymore.
Like, are they gonna have more extreme filters? Like, are they gonna, like, what are we gonna do with our houses? And like are they gonna have a filter for the house and everything?
I mean, look at the Zoom backgrounds. It can only get better, you know?
Yes, I'm hoping for that. Like, yeah, honestly, like that's what I'm fearful of. Like, what the quote that they were saying is like incremental, slight, imperceptible damage and change in your behavior. So for me, that's my biggest concern because I
Yeah,
can
I mean, just look.
be detox.
Mhm.
I can definitely delete my apps and like whatever for like a week, 2 weeks, 2 months. But I would just always have this like lingering feeling that, oh,
Fear of missing out.
fear of not even missing out, not living my best life according to the images that I've seen.
And
Right.
there's something that I read on Instagram called the financial diet, and it said, try not to think of the aesthetic of the life that you want to live, but more of the feeling
Mm.
about the life that you want to live. You know, because I remember we made vision boards, and it was all visual. You know what I mean? It's very much like we're trying to create an aesthetic of a life that we want to live. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that comes based from social media, you know, like
Ooh,
even
that's a good point. Maybe like the images that looks beautiful, but it at the same time causes you anxiety whenever you
because
think of
your
that.
life doesn't look like that,
Yeah, whenever you
you
think
know?
of that, instead of like feeling like, oh, one day when I achieve that, I'll feel, I want to have that feeling of, you know, abundance.
Whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead, that when we picture it, is more anxiety instead.
It's
Ooh.
definitely anxiety inducing for me because it's just like, okay, I'm not there yet. When will my life look like this? Or sometimes it's like, okay, my life looks like this, but how do I keep it?
Mm.
How do I like permanently keep? There's like a, I don't remember where the philosopher field of how, no, you're gonna go high, you're gonna be on that middle point, but most of the times you're gonna be like fluctuating. There's no such thing as a, you can't you can't um, know you're happy unless you go low below the line and above the line. You know what I mean? It's not possible to just stay there on that
Mm-hmm.
high. It's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I remember we were talking about tools yesterday, and how you said like, oh yeah, well, Instagram is a tool, and make sure that you know, like, use it as a tool. And I remember, and they said something in the documentary where it's like, and I said it yesterday too. It was like a tool doesn't notify you. It doesn't make you want to use it, like a hammer. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you only use a hammer when you need it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But all social media is not a tool because, and when people compare to like, oh yeah, it's a newspaper, it's a radio, it's a television, you know, like these are new technologies that people feared. And it's just like, well, no, you know, the radio only turned on when you turned it on. You know what I mean? It wasn't like you knew the time that you would listen to it. You could leave it on all day, but
Yeah, you weren't
it
carrying
didn't
around
like,
with you everywhere in the shower and like even like in the
and it didn't cater to you.
yeah.
You know, you might hear something you disagree with. It doesn't constantly show you the same things over and over, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
with a radio show, it's like, okay, I know my show that I'm interested in is from 5 to 6. You
Mm-hmm.
know, from 7 is like those crazy people that I'm not going to listen to at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, you still have the option to. But when you're on, it's like when we opened up the first Instagram for the podcast, you know, the way that the feed looked, where it has no idea who we are yet until
Mm-hmm.
we start liking things. And then it kind of starts trying to feed us things that it thinks we will like. And we only followed each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was like,
That's interesting. Do you wanna what do you think we should do now? Do you wanna do commentary? Should we look at some comments of other people that saw this? What do you think?
sure.
Okay. I will share my screen. Oh, you're gonna see my IKEA shelf that I want that is out of stock.
Always.
Always. Desktop. Yeah, so this is the shelf I want. Social dilemma. Let me see. Oh my god. Okay. Okay. Twitter. Let's just go to like. Oh, look at this. Do you need some glasses?
I checked when I looked at the Twitter for the social dilemma, I felt it was so propaganda-y.
Oh, which one? Their social media channel or people's
Their
comments?
social media channel.
Oh, we tweet, we like, we share. But what are there consequences of our growing dependence on social media? Hmm. Let me see. Let's see what people comment about it. How about that?
Yeah.
Is it like the hashtags?
I don't know if it's the hashtags or if it's the color scheme, the red and black, you know?
Oh,
I
Mark
felt like it was
Zuckerberg
kind of,
told an all-staff meeting that Steve Bannon has not violated enough policies to be suspended from Facebook. Bannon suggested in video that FBI Director Christopher Wray
Ray,
and
and
Mr.
Anthony
Anthony should
Fauci.
be beheaded. Ooh.
And then so someone said, well, this is the same sort of thing as like what's her name? She's a comedian and she posted like a parody picture of like Trump's head or something like that. And people were saying, well, she should have been, like we can't just say that she's yeah, she's okay, but then what Steve Bannon did isn't okay. And it's like, well, Steve Bannon kind of speaks to people who are radicalized and would act on such things as beheading. It's like a known base that he's probably like these people are radicalized, and you have to take that into account. You can't just say like they're on the same level or same playing field. I forget what her name is. Oh,
I don't know, but that's interesting because, like we were saying, right? These few people manipulate or like control everything. How do Americans? Oh, like this one's dry. How did Americans become so stupid? I'm like, bruh, I'm sure it's not just Americans, it's everybody. First of all, if you're gonna be like that, Americans are the one that invented the social media, so they're not stupid.
But what I think is that America definitely has a problem in terms of not I don't want to say critical thinking, but definitely questioning society. Versus like when I came to Montreal, I was so surprised by how many protests there were for just raising tuition, and then tuition is like starting at $25,000 in some places in the States, and some places go up to $150,000 for one semester. And I think about what would have happened if people actually protested, and it's definitely a way in the States to make sure that only certain kinds of people go to university,
That's horrible. Yeah, I think I do think that, well, it is known the fact that I think even in Canada people say like the closest thing we have to like the States, like the working, like that pace of like working and always like kind of not thinking about the like outside of yourself and just work life is like Toronto. But in Montreal, it's a slower pace. I feel people have more time to critical think and to organize themselves and
reflect. And it's an artist city.
So look, this comment right under it, I find very interesting too, was a real eye-opener for our family. I had no idea that we did not see the same news feed. So that's like, I feel like a very like a mom thing to say.
I think it's funny because it's definitely a lot of older users who use Facebook now and kind of spread articles that are fake or spread news that doesn't exist or that are lies. Just because we understand what fact checking is, we understand clickbait articles, but they're still kind of coming into this digital language and technology. My mom will post an article and people will get angry because it might have been an article she disagreed with, but she didn't say she disagreed with it, and that's something that you kind of have to do now, just because people don't understand context that, oh, well, I know this person, they wouldn't agree with this. Maybe they're putting this for, as a thought-provoking piece or something.
It's true. Like, I know that like Asian parents are also like very bad at it because let's say when we see like links that are like not legitimate, right? Like the title of the website and like so many like slash one ABC whatever, like all these random links to it, and we just know it like instinctually like this is a very questionable link. But like immigrant parents are extra level of like language and extra level of like, I don't know. It's even more weird.
It's like understanding sarcasm, if you don't understand it, you're going to think everyone's an ass.
Yeah.
But when you do understand it, you can tell when someone's joking, type of thing.
Yeah. And sarcasm is actually, maybe we'll talk about this like in another episode, but it's actually a very Western thing. There's no such thing as like sarcasm in China, right? Like people don't understand that. It's a different sense of humor. I like this comment. This one I'm going to direct it to you, Vicky. Turning notifications off for all social media was the best decision I made this year.
So I did turn off my notifications, but then I missed a bunch of sneaker drops. And now I'm getting bombarded with notifications from Nike, and none of them are sneaker drops, and I'm so angry.
Damn. Okay. Yeah. So I feel like that's a pretty good look at the comments. Unless, do you think we should watch some? Look at some. I mean, a comprehensive, eye-opening documentary. I agree, sir. Straight documentary may have worked better than a fiction hybrid.
Yeah, I did think it was a little bit. Someone said hyperbolic. I felt it was very extreme, especially when the daughter like broke the case. I could see that happening, definitely, but I felt it was a bit too
dramatic,
a bit too much. Yeah, a bit dramatic.
True. But you know what the thing is? It's funny because I know, remember when you were that age, everything that happened to you is dramatic. Like,
oh yeah, it's true.
Like the feeling of somebody saying something to you, it was just
it still hurt.
Times, right?
I mean, I still think about stuff people said to me. I'm like, ouch! Like, why does it still hurt now? Like, damn.
I know. So I feel bad for the little girl. I would say but at the same time, if that was some crazy shot, I was like, oh, okay, she really like hammered that.
She needed it, but I kind of felt like the older sister in the movie with my family, kind of just being like the annoying nonconformist, trying to stay away even though I don't stay away type of person who's always critiquing, and everyone's just like, it's not that big a deal, it's no problem. And it's just like, okay, just, I mean, ignore all the world burning, everyone who's getting plastic surgery to look like a Snapchat filter, all the girls that have like body dysmorphia because they don't look like an Instagram model. But yeah, that's fine. Social media is just doing a really good job of bringing us all together. Yay.
I would say final thoughts. What do you think? What do you think about the final rating? Would you recommend this to people? Like, what is your scale? 1 to I don't know what?
I would say a 6 out of 10, but definitely watch other documentaries, other information, read articles, read books, like look at the experts who are talking. Don't just stop at this documentary. Because I've seen John Lanier and Jonathan Haidt before talking about, Jonathan Haidt talked about Gen Z and how they're the first generation to have it in middle school. And I think those are people to like look into.
That's
and even some of the people who take away from that.
The author? Was that
Jaron Lanier is the one with the dreads. Yes. Jaron, sorry,
okay.
Not John. But Jonathan Haidt is the other person who started talking about self-harm and suicide rates. He was there very briefly.
That was, yes. I'm going to put up some screenshots of it. I hope it's not, do you think it will be like copyrighted? I don't know, but.
I don't know. Because I've seen him talk about it in multiple places, so I'm sure he has it on a website or something.
But definitely that was like very eye-opening. I'm like, man, because women, just as girls in general, it's just another topic we can talk about, like how marketing to women is just crazy and how that affects like young kids, So for me, did you give us the final rating? Yes, you did.
Final rating 6 out of 10. Yeah.
6 out of 10 only?
Yeah. I think it's informative, but I think that I just feel like it's a Netflix documentary that brings to the forefront, like, this is a problem. Shut down your notifications and then everything will be okay. It's like, no, you need to stay informed. You need to make sure that if this is something very serious to you, you need to make sure and hold accountable the people who are heads of these media companies, get involved, get active. And again, it's difficult to change it from the outside and blah, blah, blah. You shouldn't can you critique something that you're using type of thing, but it's just like, well, you need to know the problems and how it affects you in order to better talk about it, you know? So definitely a 6 out of 10.
For me, I guess I'm surprised. Bless you.
Thank you.
I guess I'm surprised that I liked it a lot and it really like captured my attention. I would say, yeah, like the fiction part took me out of it sometimes, but I get where they're coming from. So I would give it like 8, almost 9, like out of 10, that you need to watch it. You have to watch it. And the fact that it kept me engaged and kept my brain like working, I'm like, that's a good documentary, you know, like, so, and what comes after that is not what the filmmaker's job, you know, that is as a society what we should be doing.
Exactly.
So for me, that's
informed.
a very, yeah, exactly. So that is a recommend for me. Yes, so that's it.
Yes.
So we don't really have an outro.
Fini. Not yet.
So
it could just be like flames and like exactly.